In the 1970s, three friends from London dreamed of conquering the world with their band. But as punk exploded, their sound suddenly felt outdated, and after a series of failures, they faded into the shadows. Then, 14 years later, a phrase scribbled almost by accident would spark the song that changed their story forever. Today, we'll explore how the Outfield rose from obscurity to become one of the iconic rock acts of the 1980s, and how, by the end of the decade, they were almost completely forgotten, even in their own homeland. Let's begin. It all begins with Tony Lewis, born on December 21st, 1957, in London's East End, a tough, working-class neighborhood. Although his childhood was marked by financial hardship, he found in music both comfort and a passion that would stay with him for life. At just 9 years old, Tony discovered the Beatles on the radio and was instantly captivated.
She's dressed in black.
Their songs planted a creative seed that would only keep growing. Over time, his musical interests expanded to include David Bowie, the Rolling Stones, and above all, his favorite band, T-Rex. At 14, Tony rescued an old acoustic guitar a friend was about to throw away. He didn't know a single chord, but that moment marked the beginning of his lifelong love affair with music and his dream of forming a band. There was only one problem. Tony was on his own, unable to find anyone who shared his taste in music to start the rock band he so desperately wanted. But soon, a friendship that would change everything was about to begin. In high school, Tony met Alan Jackman, a classmate who shared the very same passion for music. The two quickly became close friends and decided to form a band. Alan took up the drums, while Tony chose the bass, partly because his shyness and small stature made him prefer a role away from the spotlight. The band began playing at small local events, performing covers of popular hits. These shows gave them both valuable experience and the confidence to perform on stage. After graduating, Tony and Alan decided to take their passion to the next level. Driven by their love of music, they began searching for a new member who could help them build a band capable of standing out in the fiercely competitive world of rock. Tony and Alan needed a third member to complete their band, so they placed an ad in a local newspaper looking for a guitarist. That's when John Spinks showed up at Tony's house, wearing an Afghan coat and dark sunglasses, leaving an unforgettable first impression. Tony later recalled that from that very moment, he knew Spinks was the perfect fit for the group. Thus was born Sirius B, a progressive rock band that marked the trio's first serious attempt at musical stardom. Their ambition was enormous, but they were about to face fierce competition from another rising genre. The sudden explosion of punk rock on the London scene, led by bands like the Sex Pistols, completely reshaped public taste. This raw, rebellious sound overshadowed Sirius B's progressive rock, making their music seem outdated and limiting their chances of success. As a result, the band struggled to land record deals or concert gigs, and eventually decided to part ways. Fate took an unexpected turn in 1984 when Tony, Alan Jackman, and John Spinks reunited. Together, they formed a new band called Baseball Boys. Ironically, none of them were actually baseball fans. They sent their demos to several record labels, but only one paid attention: Columbia Records. Interestingly, British labels showed no interest, dismissing their music as sounding too American. Columbia, on the other hand, loved it and offered them a contract. Before signing, an executive suggested changing their name from the Baseball Boys to the Outfield to avoid confusion and give it a sharper identity. But the true spark came one night when John Spinks picked up his guitar and began strumming a few chords that had been stuck in his head. Suddenly, a phrase emerged. "Josie's on a vacation far away." It was catchy, mysterious, cinematic. Spinks became obsessed with it and wrote the rest of the lyrics almost in a single sitting, inspired by everyday scenes and personal fictions. Tony Lewis loved it, added his high, crystal-clear vocals, and within hours, Your Love was born, without pressure, without a formula. Curiously, none of the band members believed that song would be a hit. They were betting more on tracks like Say It Isn't So. But their producer, William Whitman, heard the demo and didn't hesitate. Your Love had to be recorded with full force. And so, in 1985, Play Deep was released, and Your Love took off.
Josie's on a vacation far away.
It climbed to number 6 on the Billboard Hot 100 and became one of the most unmistakable anthems of the 1980s.
I just wanna use your love tonight.
The music video, filmed on a modest budget, received heavy rotation on MTV, catapulting the band straight into the hearts of the American public. Alongside Your Love, songs like Say It Isn't So and All the Love also received positive acclaim, cementing their place in the music of the decade. The album's success was undeniable. It sold over 3 million copies in the United States alone and earned a triple platinum certification. Yet despite their massive American success, the Outfield never reached the same level of popularity in their native UK, something Tony Lewis always regretted. Although Play Deep was a major success, the Outfield's follow-up releases, Bangin', 1987, and Voices of Babylon, 1989, failed to match the impact of their debut. Despite notable singles like Since You've Been Gone, No Surrender, and the hit Voices of Babylon, which reached the Billboard Top 25 in 1989, the band began to lose commercial momentum.
Since you've been gone,
In 1991, Alan Jackman left the group, saying he wanted to spend more time with his family. Tony Lewis and John Spinks carried on as a duo, releasing Diamond Days, 1990, which featured the single For You, and later Rockeye, 1992, with Closer to Me as one of its highlights. But by then, the sparkle of the 80s had already faded. The decline of the Outfield was due to several factors. With the rise of grunge and alternative rock in the 90s, their polished power pop sound began to feel outdated. The departure of Jackman weakened the group's dynamic, and their later albums simply couldn't recapture the magic of their debut. For this reason, many labeled Tony a one-hit wonder, defined by Your Love, a song that has only grown in recognition over the years, ultimately becoming a generational anthem that still resonates with millions of fans around the world. But from this point forward, everything was about to come crashing down for Tony Lewis, as we'll see next. As the 1990s went on, the band tried to stay relevant with projects like It Ain't Over, 1998, and Anytime Now, 2006. But their popularity continued to fade. In 2011, they briefly reunited with Alan Jackman and released Replay, an album that aimed to recapture their original sound. While it was welcomed by their most loyal fans, it failed to draw in a new audience. These setbacks pushed Tony into a dark period of frustration and doubt about his musical future. Tragedy struck in 2014 when John Spinks passed away from cancer at the age of 60. The loss of his lifelong creative partner devastated Tony, leading him to temporarily step away from music as he struggled with grief and uncertainty. It was a period that plunged him into deep depression. With the unconditional support of his wife, Carol, Tony eventually found the strength to return to music. In 2018, he released his solo album Out of the Darkness, a title that reflected his emotional journey. While the record was a heartfelt tribute to Spinks and a testament to his resilience, its limited commercial impact left Tony in a state of introspection and melancholy. despite proving that his voice and talent remained as strong as ever. Before we continue, if you're enjoying this story, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you won't miss any of our weekly videos on rock legends. Now, let's move forward. With the unwavering support of his wife, Carol, Tony began working on his second solo album, More Than I Could. On this project, he played every instrument and co-wrote each song with her, turning it into a reflection of his passion and perseverance. Yet Tony never imagined it would be the last album he would ever record. Tony Lewis passed away at his home near London on October 19, 2020, at the age of 62. Paradoxically, he died in his homeland, a place that had largely ignored him musically. The circumstances of his passing remain a mystery, with his publicist only stating it was sudden and unexpected. His family chose not to disclose the cause, leaving a veil of uncertainty over his final days. This silence has led to speculation. Some suggest that the lingering pain of losing John Spinks, combined with the struggles of reviving his career, may have affected his emotional health. Was it possible he took his own life? Could it have been substance-related? We may never know. What is certain is that his family chose privacy, honoring a man who always felt more comfortable with music than with fame. The Outfield was one of those bands that defied labels. British musicians who found success in America, melodic songwriters in an era of excess. And while many dismissed them as a one-hit wonder, their discography is filled with songs still cherished by fans today. Because in the end, it's not about how many hits you had. It's about how many times your song managed to slip into someone's life and stay there forever. But the Outfield weren't the only ones who found their place thanks to a powerful song. Something very similar happened to another legendary band, one whose track seemed like an accident, but ended up changing music forever. Click on the next video and join me for the song born by mistake that changed music history. Bartros, Luck or Talent? See you there, my rock friend.